Okay, so we're back for yet another episode of the Menopause Summit. So today we're going to be speaking to Sally Hall, who's actually getting ready to run a 50-mile race in, when's that, Sally? May, is it?
In May, yeah, and it's 50k, so a little bit shorter than 50 miles, but still a long way.
It's still a long way.
Which one is it, Sally? What's it called?
It's the Ultra X up at Loch Ness.
Oh, brilliant. Up my way.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So
Where
some
are
challenging
you?
terrain then.
Yeah, you're on the right side of the border. Yeah, I'm just near Edinburgh, so you'll be a bit further up.
Well, I actually live in Shetland, so I'm rolling in from Shetland today. So quite far north.
Yeah, it doesn't get much further north than that, really, does it?
Not a lot.
Yeah. So when did we first meet? Virtually, of course, we haven't actually met in person. So when did we start working together? Was it?
It was April last year, I think. So I just had COVID and was feeling awful about everything. And yeah, I'd kind of played with kettlebells for a few years and thought, no, I really need to get some coaching. So had a look at the internet, and that's where I found Claire. Under the Strong First stuff. So reached out and basically told her my life story in about 20 minutes. set up a kettlebell session and thought, let's see how we get on. So yeah, that was April. So it'll be coming up for a year.
Yeah. So so you're doing, the idea of this challenge of what you're doing is coming up to your 50th birthday, isn't it? So you wanted to do it before your 50th. So
yeah.
So are you we started with the kettlebells first, and I think I changed your technique significantly starting from the feet. I was intrigued with your toes, wasn't I? I haven't got a foot fetish. There's just the feet tell us such a story and stuff like that. So what was noticeable about how you changed your technique?
I think, one of the first things you noticed was around stability, really. And there was definitely something going on with my right foot. So my knee was all over the place when we were doing basic swings, and I wasn't really getting, a lot of grip really with my toes. So we started to explore doing a few different things, making me really aware of my toes, just kind of getting something, even like a coaster underneath my big toe, just to kind of bring that awareness to my feet a little bit more, because I guess my running training had moved much more from road to trail, and I was really wanting to make sure that I was kind of building some stability up in my feet. And so over time, we just started to strengthen that up a wee bit. And as I increased my miles, I've actually been to physio now and really sorted out what was going on, because Claire was like, we're doing this virtually. I can definitely see there's something going on there with your feet and your toes. And no matter what we tried, there was always still a little bit of wobble there. So if we'd been in person, Claire would have been able to see my form so much more. And we did lots of different angles using the video. But Claire kind of recommended that I went to see the physio and just kind of get that sorted out, which I've done, which has just been brilliant. And without that advice, I probably would have just kind of carried on, because I was getting a little bit of pain and I was thinking, I can just run through it. It's fine. I'll just carry on like you do. Seeing the physio has pretty much changed everything. Big game changer. So I think that alongside, it's the tiny little muscle in your ankle. I can't remember. Is it perineal or something?
Perineals?
Yeah, perineal. Yeah. So basically, I've done a lot of sport as I've kind of grown up, and I've basically knackered my tendons and things around my ankle one way or another. So that little muscle was just not working properly. So it just needs to be switched on. So I've got warm-ups that I do before my run-in to switch it on and make sure that my hammies and butt are actually doing what they're meant to do. And then along with the strength training, that kind of complements it. So it's a tiny wee muscle. It's surprising it can give you so much hassle, really. But definitely worth exploring.
So how long, so we got you onto the weights and stuff, changed your hip hinge to a more athletic hip hinge to give you more power as well. So how much, and I think we cut your training back significantly as well, and you didn't actually, the sessions on the kettlebells, because I think what we're trying to make ladies understand that yes, you need strength training, but you don't have to spend hours. So how long are you now spending on your strength training?
Strength training's minimal now. So it went from, I guess, getting back into it, I was doing a lot. So I went from maybe doing 4 hours a week of strength training when I first got back with Claire, because I just wanted to, there was a lot of kind of contributing factors. I think it was giving me a different confidence that I'd not felt with even though I was running a little bit and I was getting over COVID and my heart rate was all over the place. I felt like the strength training was just building that up again. It was like just giving me something that I felt like I was able to do, and I was seeing results really quickly. So that was great. But then as I worked with Claire, we got to a point where the strength training was dropping off and the miles were increasing. So now I'm probably doing like 40 minutes, so 2 20-minute slots a week on kettlebells to keep that going. And then I do kind of yoga as well on top of that. So my miles are kind of up to around 40k, maybe a bit more, and they're increasing all the time. So longer runs are kind of half marathon length. But yeah, the strength training's dropped off a wee bit and the miles are increasing. But I wouldn't want to be without the strength training, because it just gives me that feeling of, I know I can, it's an inner confidence is the only way I can describe it. I know I can do it. And if I'm not doing it alongside my running, it just doesn't feel so productive, I suppose.
And I suppose as well, when we think about it, well, when you're saying, oh, we did an hour, a lot of it was working on technique, but was movement preparation. It wasn't a all-out workout, so to speak, was it? It was about movement. It wasn't that you were going to crawl out of the session and go, oh my God, that's it. And I think you always were surprised at how quickly your strength actually increased. I think we did a 16 kilo get up, didn't you?
Oof. Yeah, which I honestly never would have believed I could have done. And that was in a matter of, it was like less than 8 weeks, probably we would get into that. But yeah, I think with Claire's guidance, it was I was wanting to race ahead, because I'm used to sport being getting your heart rate up, sweating, feeling that feeling of exhaustion, I suppose, at the end of it. And Claire was like, slow down, like stop grabbing the kettlebell, never rest.
Breathe. Breathe. Slow it down. So
there was that bit about managing my heart rate that kettlebells helped me with as well, because it was that recovery periods in between doing the swings. And then I took my running right back to basics. So Claire was like, right, introduced me to math training. So having the really low heart rate, which was so frustrating to start off with, but has paid dividends since doing that. And yeah, making sure I was in the right zones when I was with my heart rate, when I was running. But that a lot of that came from real recovery with my kettlebells. So yeah.
So
and when you talk about
sorry, carry on.
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking, you mentioned, Sally, saying that you saw results pretty quickly, and you were quite surprised by that. I just wanted to ask and specify, what kind of results were they? What did you see? What did you feel quickly?
Yeah. Body shape changed really quickly. So like from the external, I was wearing, I'd not done exercise for probably 6 months before that, and I'd done bits and pieces of running all my life, but I'd not really done any training. I then had COVID, and I just was drinking a lot more alcohol, I guess, over lockdown, and eating a lot of rubbish. So I think just having that kind of I guess it was drive really to kind of get there. I was supported by Claire, so body shape started to change, skin changed because I had a wee bit of nutritional advice from Claire as well. Getting up hills when I was running, that was a big thing for me. I noticed that hills that I would call my nemesis hills started to feel easier. I felt like my core was switching on, which I'd felt before, but not in the same way, kind of really kind of feeling that, yes, I can get up this hill. And yeah, there was this kind of stability stuff with my feet, were definitely stuff that are changing. But I mean, I didn't sign up to it to get that that feeling of I want to lose weight and I want to be thin and I want to fit into clothes. I was wearing fat jeans and all of this, all those jeans that we have in the back of the cupboard that we dread taking out. But I did it because I wanted to feel strong, and I felt like I was at a time in my life where I suddenly thought, I don't care so much what I look like, but I really enjoy the feeling of being strong and having confidence. So they were the big changes. So it's both physical and mental.
Yeah.
What is your running background? Have you done an ultra before, or is this going to be your first one?
First ultra. So I've run a couple of I've done a lot of half marathons, and I've done the Edinburgh marathon twice when I was a bit younger. And in some ways, running for me had been escape in my life before. If I'd needed to get out of the house, or if while I was with a partner for a long time that I just wanted to be out, so I'd just say I'm going running. That was my get out of the house kind of excuse. Enjoyed running at school, but never been picked because I wasn't in the top 3. I think that had a real, if you weren't placed for long distance running in the top 3, then you were, well, that's not for you. But actually, I think if I'd have followed my running career from school, I would have probably done a lot more. But yeah, just never run over the marathon distance. So, and never run an event on a trail before as well. So 2 things that are going to be pretty full on for me. But I'm trying to, in my head, in terms of breaking it down, it's a day on the hill. I love being outside. I love being in, up on the hills. Shetland's very windy and wet. I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit kinder on the day for the ultra. But yeah, and I love running kit. I've got an obsession with kind of kit. I just that's where my money goes.
I'm with you there. I'm with you.
So comparatively now, what would you, because obviously as we're coming to menopause, perimenopause, how does your recovery seem? Are you finding a significant amount of difference, or do you think because we've changed things, what are you finding?
I think, well, my body's changing for sure. I definitely feel more tired. I definitely have to watch what I eat and drink more than I used to. I'd get up and run a good distance after having a spoonful when I was younger. I just can't do that anymore. But I guess, yeah, the kind of big changes for me, and even reflecting on just Sunday's run, I did a 16K, ran it with 3 guys who I'm training with. They are all younger than me. The youngest is 35, and I'm kind of competitive. I just wanted to keep up, so kept up. Heart rate was pretty high. Sunday night, my cortisol was definitely high, and I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. My body was just kind of thrumming with it. That's something that I've noticed in terms of perimenopausal, that my cortisol, if you don't keep an eye on that, it has a massive effect on your performance. So I had a rest day Monday, went out on Tuesday and just did an 8K. Heart rate was through the roof. So the cortisol's still there. And it's the effect of that is so much different now. So in terms of strength and running, it's kind of just keeping an eye on that and making sure that my cortisol's down. I'm running the race that I want to run, or the training that I need to do, because I can't keep up with young guys. It's not the way. It's just not the way anymore. And I might be competitive, but there's definitely a cortisol thing, perimenopausal.
Yeah. I think it's I think it's a thing that we all do, is we tend to dumb out the noise, don't we? We try to ignore the stop warning signs, the elevated heart rate, the recovery. We're not sleeping. I mean, my sleep last night was terrible, and I'm like, I feel awful today, and I still went and lifted. And I'm like, why did I do that? And I feel even worse now. I should have gone. Yeah. So with the food, then what was your main change that you've made to what you were eating?
Yeah. Well, Claire, I really reflect on that food diary that I sent you. I thought, I've got to be honest. So Claire was like, in the first week or so, just send me a list of what you're eating. Just, just be honest. Don't hide anything. I think it was mainly made up of pasta, pink wine and ice cream.
Yeah, it was rosé. I've just had a skin for rosé. At least she was honest.
And at the time, it was almost my comfort, I suppose, when I reflect back on it. There was a wee bit of that there. So the transition, I mean, the amount of veg we eat now compared to what I did back in, this time last year, has completely changed. We can't keep up with the veg buying that we have in our house. Cut down a lot on pasta. I was eating pasta every other night, basically, and those really kind of refined carbs. Eat a lot more eggs, protein, stuff that kind of fills me up, but isn't like highly kind of calorific. But with the strength training, I really tried to cut out, and I was having eggs for breakfast and just watching what I was eating, a lot of salads and omelets and chicken. But I've been quite hungry since I've been up in my miles, so I've been kind of making sure that I've been eating more. So I do eat quite a bit more, and I've brought in quite a bit more fruit, I suppose, which is, I'm getting sugar from that to kind of fuel me up just before I go out. But diet's completely changed. The amount of wine that we drank the Christmas before last, when I compare it, we're just not drinking the same. Well, the amount of training we're doing as well, we just can't. We can't drink the same, but not drinking the same, and just a completely different diet, really.
Yeah, I think what I noticed was the skin tone change, on the puffiness around the eyes and stuff significantly changed, and week on week you could see it. And I would like to add to everybody, was I judgmental at all?
No.
I just think maybe we cut some of this out, we make adjustments. The thing is, I always suggest, I'm not going to write a full thick sort of diet plan, but it's like what we were talking about on the Sundays, like, let's try up in the fats, let's get some more avocados in, let's get the monosaturates, the olive oils and stuff like that as well. And then because you were trying to do a bit, and again, I'm not anti-carb, which I said to you, we need to start putting more carbs in, just not pasta. Because what had you been trying recently with the
rice
carbs?
Cakes, or
with the carbs, because you've been experimenting a bit for eating en route, hadn't you?
Oh well, for actually on the run. So obviously I'm going to have to eat on the way around when I do the ultra. So I was thinking kind of peanut butter, white bread, mushed up a little bit. There's all the gels and stuff like that, they make me jittery. I think a lot of them are high sugar. So any advice that anyone's got on that would be good. I always feel a little bit funny after having one of the gels. But kind of real food, I'm thinking, is what I'm going to need for on the day. So just trying a few different things out. On Sunday, I tried rice cakes with peanut butter to try and be a bit more gentle on my tummy, because I don't eat a lot of bread now. So if I'm eating white bread or whatever, I really notice my tummy gets bloated and I just don't feel great. So tried rice cakes. It was an experiment. It was a pretty windy day in Shetland, and I messaged Claire to say I tried them, and I'd learned two things. And one is cut them up much smaller than you think you're going to need, because I'd tried to shove a whole rice cake in my face. And also, don't breathe in through your mouth when you're eating a rice cake, because it was like there was bits of rice cake everywhere. But just trying and testing a few things, really, just to see what helps me on the way around.
Did you try the sports drink thing?
I've not tried that now. But
we'll try that.
Because
again, what works for one. So
I was just going to say, so I run ultras as well, but going back to that thing you was talking about with the boys, one of the reasons why I switched to ultras was because women tend to do better than men. over a longer distance. Once you get past marathon stage, women can do better than men. And I was like, I want to be involved in a sport where women win. They don't just win for their age. They don't just win because they're for the female. They win. Full stop. I was like, yeah, I'm doing that. Whether I do it, I'm not bothered. I will be the slowest person at the back, but I will be cheering the women on at the front, because there's just not many sports where that happens, is there? But when it comes to food, I usually stick with proper food, like real food. And it is about trial and error and checking, sort of playing with what you're eating. But I found I'd make little like protein balls, but with like cocoa powder, peanut butter, some sugary stuff in there, but just really natural stuff, and then teeny tiny ones, but stuff that you could almost like suck and it would melt, rather than you having to chew. Because if you're having to kind of really do something crumbly particularly, and you're trying to get through it and then breathe at the same time, and I don't know about you, but even breathing through your nose while you're chewing something, it's like
you're drowning.
It's so hard.
Horrible. I've used, I've done quite a few ultras. I did 100 miler a couple of years ago, and I was ordering in by the literal box full of naked bars.
Yeah, they're good.
And I found that really good because I didn't have to prep anything. I didn't have to, I like making stuff like you said, Kelly, but sometimes I just don't have time. So click of a button, I can get 24 in a box or however many it was. And I had 3 or 4 boxes of those for training, and then selected my favorite ones for the actual event. And I knew then that my stomach would be okay on that, and I'd be confident on that it would be okay, and I could not drown whilst I was trying to eat it.
But Sally, actually, not whenever it is, Friday, tomorrow, crikey, I'm chatting to a woman called Kate Percy, and she's a runner and she's a foodie. She's got her own blog, and we're going to interview her as well. But I saw a post from her on Facebook, and she was at the running show with a new product, which is a natural kind of bar for when you're en route. So you might want to keep an eye out for that one. She might have something to offer. She's all about natural food and stuff, and she is a runner. So she's I'm looking forward to speaking to her, really. Because
I mean, obviously I don't sort of have anything like that. I mean, I've done a run on a 72-hour fast and I've been fine. But again, would I go and do an ultra on keto and fasted? Absolutely not, obviously.
But you wouldn't go and do an ultra full stop, love.
Well, no. You never know, ladies. One day I may shock you all. So I did try training for a marathon. I was like, I can't spend that much time on my own. Voices in my head. So, but one of my brothers, he did some Ironman stuff, and he's done 2 or 3 Ironman, and also and sort of distance, too far for me, but and he tried the gels and he didn't get on with the gels either, and he said, and I mean, he's literally having a gel every half hour. Are you supposed to do that? No. Really? Like, and then all these sugary drinks and stuff like that. And I suppose if you're taking your blood glucose or your insulin's coming in, then it crashes. You just go ping-ponging all the time.
That's the thing. Once you start on the gels and the sugars, you've got to then continue. That's why it's every half an hour. Otherwise, you are dropping. And you are going to feel that. And especially, talking about perimenopause, changes that we see physiologically, it's well known, well documented that as we're going through this transition, we are less sensitive to insulin anyway. That's happening as we age, and as part of the links between insulin and estrogen. And so we're requiring more of the insulin to do the same job that it did before. So we're definitely going to feel that in our fueling, I think, energy levels.
I don't know what surprises me, and again, just putting this out here, sugar is renowned to lower your immune system. So when you're training hard anyway, you're already giving your immune system a bit of a challenge anyway, and then you slam a load of sugar in that's lowering the immune system, and it breaks down your collagen and I mean, it's terrible on your skin. If you want to age your skin, stick a load of sugar in. You know, I mean, like I say, I can't tolerate sugar anyway, migraine. But yeah. So what other thing? How much protein are you having then, Sally? Have you changed your protein intake a lot, or I mean, I know you're having the eggs, but.
Yeah, in terms of kind of grams, I'm not sure, but we're eating protein, a lot more protein every night now. So whether that's chicken or fish, or it's some sort of kind of meat product. We're not vegetarian, but I'd say, I mean, it's really increased. And actually after big runs, so if I run, you know, more than kind of 15k, I might even have a protein shake. So I've like bought some protein shakes in. If I'm doing back-to-back days, I found that's really helped kind of get my well, it helps with my energy, but I don't feel like achy or anything like that if I have a protein shake, and that's usually within 20 minutes of getting home from the run. Just knock that up just to increase that. But I think as the overall kind of diet, it's the kind of vegetable and protein intake is just changed quite a bit.
So
and even like,
yes, sorry, are you getting any symptoms of sort of like menopause, perimenopause, or are you sort of like quite?
I am totally fine. I definitely am more tired. I definitely get brain fog. I have days where I can't function particularly well, and I think you start beating myself up about that. And then days when I'm on fire and I'm literally churning out work, you know, like you wouldn't believe it. But you know, I've still got my periods, so, and they're regular. So I think you know, I must be perimenopausal. I'm 50 in June. But in terms of symptomatic, and half of me, you know, when I think about how I feel today compared to how I felt this time last year, half of me wonders around the impact of running and strength training and my yoga. You know, all of that is definitely, I just feel a million times better than what I did this time last year. So, you know, if I was starting to go down the M hole, if you like, back at last year, I've managed to climb a little bit out of it, I'd say, and that's just through, you know, eating differently and focusing and taking my rage out on the kettlebells.
That's really powerful to say. Yeah, that's quite a big thing to say, that you feel better 12 months later. You feel better now just from making those changes.
We've been talking about those changes that it sounds like you've made, Sally, in pretty much all the interviews we've had, haven't we? The lifestyle changes, and relatively, I know they're not easy sometimes. You know, we do have our comfort foods and our comfort alcohols, and that's okay within reason. And then, but the relatively simple changes to make that can make a huge difference. But I do think we've definitely found our new hashtag: climb out of the M hole.
Yes. I love that.
Or just hashtag M hole.
M-hole.
It's just my new thing.
I'm sorry, Sally, we're taking that on.
We're having that.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, I think we're stealing that one. That is cool.
Yeah,
the mental note taken as soon as you said that.
It's going on your bio and everything for the landing page.
I think as well, though, I suppose if we're eating, and I mean, again, you didn't really have a high processed food diet, really. I mean, there was more processed food in it, but I mean, it wasn't on the grand scheme of things. I mean, I've sort of like looked at people's nutrition diaries, and I just go, look, just give me an overview of what you're doing, how you feel, blah blah. It's a difference. I mean, I had one was half a biscuit or the full biscuit. That was literally there. She had half biscuit for breakfast and a can of cake. And I'm like, should we give it, you know, I would have eaten the packet, you know, if that was me back in the day. But I think it's like that, you know, if we're loading our body up with a lot of toxins and processed E numbers, and it's got to have such a massive impact. You know, I mean,
impact you don't notice until you get rid of it. That's the
Yeah.
thing, it creeps up on you, doesn't it? Because you don't realise until you eliminate stuff and feel tons better. And let's face it as well, it can take some time. You can be knocking stuff out. And Sally, you were kind of a little bit lucky in the fact that you noticed changes from the strength training straight away. And obviously that will have come alongside the nutritional as well. But sometimes it can take a while for that crap to come out of your system. So you can feel like you're depriving yourself of all the stuff you want to eat and feeling worse than you were feeling when you were on it, because your body's trying to deal with it and get shut of it. And that delay sometimes is what throws us back into I felt better when I was drinking copious amounts of rosé and having a biscuit for breakfast, or even half a biscuit, you know. We've all done daft stuff, haven't we?
We're wanting some quick wins, can't we? Because I speak to a lot of women who know that they know what they should be eating, they know what they should be doing a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of them do. And it's not like, similarly to what we've already said, they're not eating pizza every night, you know, and there's just a few things that creep in here and there and can really impact them in quite a negative way, but we don't always realize, do we, what that damage is doing until we start to take that away. And sometimes they're well aware that if they cut down on the coffee a little bit, or if they're having too much, or the sugary things, or not eating enough protein and struggling to know what enough protein is, and all of that kind of thing, then it feels very much like they're trying to take things away from themselves. They want the quick win. They want the quick win to know that they're doing the right thing. So I was wondering, Sally, what gave, if anything, what gave you that feeling of, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm on the right track with this. It's sometimes difficult. I don't always want to do it, but what kept you going in those early stages when it all felt a bit hard? And I'm kind of assuming that it all felt hard there, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just wondering what the quick wins were for you.
I mean, I don't want to come across vain, because I don't think I am particularly, but it was definitely feeling comfortable in my clothes. Again, was a quick win. And I thought, if I continue with this, you know, I'll be able to fit back into my wardrobe. I didn't want to spend a whole load of money on a new wardrobe for my kind of bigger self, if you like. So that was a quick win. I guess, I don't know, it's that feeling of joy as well. Just, well, particularly with the running and being outside, was a quick win for me. Remembering, you know, I walked the dog every day. It wasn't like I wasn't getting outside, but just moving under your own steam and feeling joyful about that was definitely something that I was like, I remember that what this is like. It was, you know, re-triggered those memories for me. And you know, I can't emphasize enough, I guess, under the guidance of Claire, because, you know, running after COVID and being much bigger than what I'd ever been in terms of running before was quite a strain on my body. So and I suppose a wake-up call as well, you know, having COVID, I was like, I don't want this to be something that's going to affect me forever. And, you know, Claire was like, I don't think it is, but let's try and test it in terms of heart rate and length of distance, and let's take this really slow. But yeah, joy and seeing those results of, you know, yeah, I can get back into my normal size jeans really quickly. Strength training and changing my diet, you know, just burning that fat off quite quickly, and then keeping that momentum going and increasing weight and, you know, distance. As it's not easy, I guess. You know, you can say it's like the get rich quick stuff, isn't it? It's not really a thing. Getting rich, it takes time and effort, and, you know, it's hard work. And although you might reflect back and think at the time, well, that was a quick win, probably in the moment it was like, oh, am I actually ever going to get into my jeans again? Or, you know, am I ever going to feel like I love running again, because I'm like half walking this because my heart rate's off the scale. So I guess it's patience and just really, trying to find the joy that you've maybe once had, even if it was years and years ago, you know, and doing stuff that you love. So
So what does your training look like now, Sally, for how much, you know, from the running? I know you're doing a couple of strength training sessions and you've got your yoga. What's your running training look like for the ultra?
So before Christmas, we were up to kind of half marathon. We did half marathon on Christmas Eve, and then we've just been treating the rest of January like a base training. So 4 runs a week now. Weekend runs are back to back. Trying to kind of do the longer runs, I suppose, the back-to-back ones. So 2 short ones in the evenings, which actually works out really well. And actually just reflecting on that, I mean, I'm in a job that I love and my boss is great. They actually asked me if I wanted a variation in hours to kind of fit in my training, to make sure I could do stuff in the daylight and things like that, which is amazing. So, wow. You know, and menopause at Visit Scotland, where I work, it's high on the agenda. You know, we care about our staff. So if women are in roles, you know, it's worth kind of exploring those things, because actually you might be given something that you never thought you could get. So yeah, so 4 runs a week, and then just increasing the mileage and trying to get off road as much as possible. Really, Shetland's tricky because it's so boggy here. You know, just running on bog a lot of the time. But in terms of building up your stability, it's great. And the other thing that I've brought into my training, which I've never used poles before, running poles. So I've bought some Black Diamond running poles. I'm really excited and started using those, getting up hills and using, I guess, where my strength trainings come as well with the kettlebells, is driving myself up hills with the poles has felt like a dream. Yeah. So not just using my legs, switching my core on and getting my poles used. So yeah, I've been practicing with those too.
How awesome is that, having a boss like that? But there's also a drive to understanding the menopause. Oh my God. I mean, that alone is a wow moment, really.
Yeah, it's really nice that, looking after your daylight stuff for your running. That's really cool.
Yeah. Because, well, as we were saying earlier, we was just reading that where the UK is one of the worst countries, got a really, really bad reputation with for women's health care. I mean, it's like, it's not, and we're supposedly pretty progressive on things, and we clearly aren't, as we're still, you know, if men were going through the menopause, HRT would be free and it would be readily available, and there would be no qualms about that it's needed, would it really? You know, so again, it's still you know, and yeah, I am a feminist in a way, but yeah, it is that thing of, it needs to, as women are in powerful positions and powerful jobs, and it shouldn't really matter if we are or we aren't, we should be getting the help out there. So the NHS actually needs to pull its head out of its gluteus maximus area and wake up and smell it. And don't get me wrong, there is some very, very good areas, but it's a postcode lottery, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And I think employers, you know, I work in HR, and in the meeting this morning, we were kind of talking about our disappointment in terms of the bill being knocked back. The legislation around menopause has been knocked back. It's not going to be the end of it, absolutely not. But, you know, as employers, what can we do to kind of support women in menopause? Because, you know, you'll see that and you'll just think, well, there we go, you know, what a surprise kind of thing. But actually what we want to do at Visit Scotland is make sure that women know that you know, they can come and talk to us, that we can have open conversations about it, that you know, we do the kind of awareness stuff, and we run sessions on it, and have, you know, I've had really good 11s, we call them, with a lady called Jin Lally, who talks about kind of stress buckets and making sure you look after yourself. So yeah, it's really positive workplace. Yeah.
Well, that was going to be my next question actually, Sally, was you know, I think that 4 times, those 4 runs a week, I mean, that's I'm going to say that's like a sensible, everybody's different, but that seems like a sensible running load with a couple of strength training sessions and all the rest of it, which sort of leads me on to then, what do you do for rest and recovery? What's your kind of your recovery like, rather than let's focus on the training? What's your recovery and the stuff that you do in between like?
Yeah, well, I do 2 yoga sessions. Actually, it was just last week. I think I found doing 2 quite a lot. Even just in the past week, I did one on a Sunday morning before I went for a run, and in the past I've actually found that that's kind of warmed me up nicely. But I felt like I had maybe, and I don't know whether it's because I did the trying to keep up with the lads thing as well, but I maybe felt a little bit more stressed by it, because it was quite a lot of balance and, you know, really trying to switch muscles on. So that's definitely been a kind of, yeah, I'm still learning with the yoga and trying to work that out for how it's going to fit with what I'm doing. But it makes my mind much calmer, which is what I really like. So that's been a real rest. I've actually since January started journaling a wee bit at night as well. So in terms of like really resting before bed has become, you know, I'm sure it's a habit of everyone, but not trying to scroll on my phone, and having the kind of real bedtime routine. And the last thing I do is journal. And it's just, I mean, writing a diary really about what I'm feeling, how my training's gone, how I feel like my ankle might be, what I've eaten, if I'm pleased with my day's work, you know, anything that just kind of comes out goes into the diary. And I bought some nice coloured pens, and yeah, just sit and do that in bed just before I go to bed. And I found that's really helped with my rest, and just kind of also being able to reflect back on it, because I'll look for patterns as I'm getting into it more. And, you know, by March, hopefully I'll have 3 months worth of data almost that I can go back and kind of look through. So that's helpful. But sometimes my rest is literally getting on the couch. And so I will get on the couch with my feet up and, you know, not really do a lot. I'm lucky I've got a really great husband who, he's also a runner, and he does look after me quite a lot. So it is literally a do nothing situation, and I'll put a movie on and that's me. You know, he's a great cook. He does a lot of the cooking. So I'll just get up and eat and go back to the couch.
That sounds amazing.
I need to find a man like that.
Yeah, me too.
Like, what do you want to eat, Claire? I was like, steak.
And, I mean, saying that as well, I think running buddies are really important. I mean, Bren, I mean, he's getting older too, but he's slowed down. He's like, right, I will buddy you, you know, don't keep up with me, in the same way as my chums were on Sunday. But having somebody that you can go running with, I'm coming down to Edinburgh for work next week, and I've arranged to meet up with friends who run in Edinburgh. So yeah, I think that kind of connection is also helpful, and helps with that rest and recovery as well, because you can support each other. And if you're not feeling it, that's the type, like Claire said earlier, that moment of, you know, should I do it, shouldn't I? If you're not feeling it, you know, you've got that support network too. So
yeah, I think people underestimate for sort of mental health the actual connection. We're sort of like, we're a species that likes connection, and don't go wrong, we all like our space as well. But I think for the mental health, and it's probably a thing that it was I can't remember who it was a podcast I was listening to, and it's like, women, if we're having a tough time, we probably talk to women. You know, you've got a friend network that you can go, oh God, I'm having a really bad day, I can't stop crying, blah blah blah. Guys don't tend to have that. You know, if you've actually said to a guy, they've gone out to the pub and go, having a really emotional day, it's just not going to happen, is it? They don't talk about feelings, whereas at least women on the whole have that support network to an extent. It was, and I think sort of like what you're saying is actually having that network of connection as well does really help.
Yeah, it does really help.
Oh, sorry, I was just linking that into Avril. When we speak to Avril, that will come up big time as well, what you've just said about that community aspect, that connection.
Yeah, it's I think that it's very easy, and I think in COVID, I think we all became very, very isolated, and I think Zoom was for me a lifesaver, because again, you're in Shetland, that's kind of isolated, but sort of like I'm in a village of like maximum of 700 people, and after that I can work in here, I don't see anybody. I could go 3 or 4 days and never actually see anybody unless I go to the front of the house. And it's like, yeah, you suddenly realize that actually, I think with the menopause stuff as well, that like-minded women knowing how bad it can be as well, even if they're not, they just tend to listen. So
yeah.
Brilliant. Any other questions have we got? Sally, is there anything that we've not asked you that you kind of want to put out there?
Just something, Kelly, earlier you mentioned about the women in sport thing, and one of the drivers for you is like you love ultras because you can beat the guys. There is that bit as well for me about hero worship, if you like. Courtney Dauwalter is my kind of person who I watch constantly on TV. But there is that bit around kind of following the social side of it, social media side of it, I suppose, following people and seeing their journey and seeing their struggle, which is really inspirational. And there is so many women. Emily, who's got 2 kids, Killian's wife, and I think she's got her own company as well that does the foodie stuff. There's a lot of women in trail running, ultra running stuff that are really inspirational people. So if women are kind of unsure about what it looks like, what it feels like, then yeah, there's so much out there for them to kind of look at and follow and feel inspired. And watching a big race called UTMB, which is on the end of August, beginning of September every year in France, that the first time I watched that, I stayed up all night. And that was just like, oh my, I need to do this at some, well, not UTMB, but I need to be out on the trails doing this kind of running. I need to change from road running or, whatever I was doing. So much inspiration, I think, for women if they want to see strong women performing really well. So yeah, I would add that in as a must.
And it's doable as well. I find a lot of people who look at the stuff that I do, or they'll listen to you, and they automatically go, oh, I'll never do that. I can't do that. I can't run more than 3 miles down the road. And you start somewhere, and I think ultra running's about, very few people run an entire ultra, especially off road. It's about walking and pacing and, there's a lot of mental resilience in there as well to get around something. Because it's bloody hard work. Yeah, it is, but not just physically, mentally. It's so doable, and women are they've got so much more to offer to that kind of length of race than not the men, that's not where I was going with it, than they think they have. That it's just that getting, like you say, perhaps it is just that need for a little bit of inspiration. You see somebody do something and kind of go, oh, I want to do that. And it might not be like the Mont Blanc. It might just be like a hill in Edinburgh, or like I go to Lake Districts or wherever. It's not the Mont Blanc, but it's the same thrill and the same sense of accomplishment. You come down off that mountain and you've done whatever, 30, 40, 50 miles, and you're just like, I just did that. I came last, I don't care.
Yeah.
And it's all relative as well, isn't it? Because it feels, I can remember my first few runs consistently running 2 or 3 miles, and it's the same euphoria of having done 50 miles. It's, you just move up that scale, and you don't have to move up it if you don't want to, but there's always that feeling of, I've pushed myself, I've used something within me to get me over those miles. And I think as women, we've got a lot of potential for being able to explore that and explore ourselves through that, because it's and putting it into perspective of perimenopause, I think those two things are really parallel. Talking about pushing yourself through running and resilience, and you're saying about mental strength and things like that, and community, you get all of those in menopause and with running as well, in that running community. Yeah,
so true. Brilliant. Right, other than our new hashtag,
I'm going to put that up this afternoon.
I'm in love with that.
I've already put a reel up, but I'll add that in.
Have we anything else, or